أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Ayah number 70. وَاللَّهُ خَلَقَكُمْ, and Allah has created you. ثُمَّ يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ, and then He will take you in death. He created you while you were nothing before. You never existed. Allah brought you into existence, and He gave you life. ثُمَّ يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ, and then when your time will expire, when your lifespan will come to an end, He will give death to you. وَمِنْكُمْ, and from you, مَنْ يُرَدُّ, there is one who will be returned, إِلَىٰ أَرْذَلِ الْعُمُرِ, to the most decrepit old age, to the most abject age. Meaning some of you will die soon, and others will continue to live until they become extremely old. Generally, only a few people make it to old age, very old age. Today perhaps it is more common. Why? Because of many medications and treatments. However, generally, very few people make it to أرذل العمر. The word أرذل is from the root letters را, ذال, لام. And radil is that which is less, that which is despicable, that which is very low. We have done this word أراذل earlier. أراذلنا بادي الرأي. The people of Nuh alayhi salam, they said, those people who follow you are أراذل. So أرذل, lowest, the most despicable. And al-umur, age. What is the most despicable age? It refers to the age of senility, old age, when a person is physically weak and he is mentally weak. He is completely dependent on others for the smallest of things even. The smallest of things even. Sometimes older people are unable to even tie their hair themselves. They're unable to open the refrigerator themselves. Unable to put on their shoes themselves. Unable to open the doors themselves. What is this? Completely being dependent on others. Physically, mentally. They're unable to read. They're unable to understand. They're unable to remember. أرذل العمر. So some people, they reach this old age. And when they reach this old age, what happens? لِكَيْ, so that. Lam is of consequence, and kay is harf ta'leel. Ta'leel is what? Illa. So it gives the meaning of so that. So لِكَيْ, so that, لَا يَعْلَمَ, he does not know. Who does not know? This old person does not know بَعْدَ عِلْمٍ, after knowledge, شَيْئًا, anything at all. It is as though he becomes a child again. And many times people develop Alzheimer's when they grow older. And they forget even the most basic things. The most basic things. They knew about so many things before, but when they reach this old age, they don't know anything. They forget how to eat. They forget how many times they have done something. They forget the names of their own children. They forget their home address. They forget their phone number. They forget the city where they have lived all their lives. لِكَيْ لَا يَعْلَمَ بَعْدَ عِلْمٍ شَيْئًا, so that after knowledge he does not know anything at all. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ قَدِيرٌ, indeed Allah is knowing and He is able. And human beings, even if they have knowledge, there comes a stage when they lose that knowledge. And even if they're very powerful, very strong, there comes a stage when they lose that qudrah. Only Allah is Alim and only He is Qadir. We see that in a person's life, he may work just like a honeybee, gaining knowledge from here and there, doing one thing after the other, continuously working, continuously building his career, his knowledge, his expertise, his skills. But eventually, it reaches a point where he begins to decline. His physical body begins to decline, his mental ability begins to decline, his knowledge begins to decline, his memory begins to decline, everything that he had acquired begins to decline. And when is that? When a person grows old. So, how can a person be arrogant over what he has? Because everything that a person has, it is only with him temporarily. He reaches a stage when he is no different than a child. That if a child needs to be looked after, similarly an older person needs to be looked after. If a child's food has to be prepared and brought to the child, an older person, their food has to be prepared and brought to them. Where little children, where their diapers are being changed, where they're being taken to the washroom, we see older people are being assisted in the washrooms as well. Recently I met someone who is a doctor, a specialist for especially older people. And they were saying that just as you have to baby-proof a house, when a child begins to crawl, when he begins to walk, you have to child-proof your house. Similarly, you have to proof your house for older people as well. That just as when you have a child in the house, you have to put a gate on the door, you have to put certain handles by the toilet seat, you have to do many, many things, you have to put things on the corners of the tables, you have to have as less furniture as possible. Similarly, you have to do the same thing for older people. Same thing, because they lose their balance. They're physically weak, and if they get hurt, if they break a bone at that point, it's extremely dangerous for them. لِكَيْ لَا يَعْلَمَ بَعْدَ عِلْمٍ شَيْئًا. He doesn't know anything that he knew before. He forgets everything. And this is a lesson for us. That how can we be arrogant? The body that Allah has given us, the ability that Allah has given us, how can we be arrogant over that? When we see older people living in our houses, in our families, when we see them losing everything they had, what's the arrogance about? Arrogance does not befit a human being. It does not befit him at all. Ikrimah, he said that man qara'a al-Qur'an, whoever recites the Qur'an, lam yuraddu ila ardhal al-umr, he will not be returned to ardhal al-umr. What is ardhal al-umr? Where a person does not know anything. So a person who reads the Qur'an, a person who recites the Qur'an, no matter how old he becomes, no matter how much of a memory loss he has, he will not forget his Qur'an. And this is true. She's telling that her aunt died recently, and while she was on her deathbed, she was in a state of extreme sickness. Her son was reciting the Qur'an by her, and as he was reciting, he made a mistake, and she corrected him. In that state. It happens to so many people. She mentioned about one of their family friends, their son had an accident, he became unconscious, he was unconscious for many days, and when he gained his consciousness, he was unable to remember his name even, but he had memorized the Qur'an, and he remembered the Qur'an. He remembered the Qur'an. One of my own relatives, I saw him myself, but how once his own son came in front of him, and he asked, "Who are you?" He didn't know who he was. But when he was asked something about the hadith, he gave an answer. He gave an explanation. He was a muhaddis. He was a muhaddis. He was a scholar. And when someone asked him about something about the deen, he gave an answer fully. And his own children would come in front of him and he would ask them, "Who are you? What's your name? And where have you come from? I don't know you." He would say these things, his own children. But if you asked him something about their religion, he knew. Ikrimah said that a person who recites the Qur'an does not reach the stage. لِكَيْ لَا يَعْلَمَ بَعْدَ عِلْمٍ شَيْئًا. He will perhaps forget his own name. He will perhaps forget many things, but he will not forget the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Yasin, ayah number 68, وَمَن نُعَمِّرْهُ نُنَكِّسْهُ فِي الْخَلْقِ أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ. And he whom we grant long life, we reverse him in creation. He goes back to being a child. So will they not understand? And we learned that the Prophet ﷺ, he used to make dua, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-bukhli, wal-kasali, wal-harami, wa-ardhali al-umuri, wa-adab al-qabri. I seek refuge with you from miserliness, from laziness, from old age, and from the punishment, from senility, and also from the punishment of the grave. So the Prophet ﷺ made dua to Allah to protect him from such age. And you see, only a person who recites the Qur'an regularly, daily, then when they reach this age, they will remember their Qur'an. They will remember, because whatever you do throughout your life, that is what you're going to remember at such a stage. One of my relatives, she recites the Qur'an every single day, and she recites Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Ali Imran every morning. I've never seen her miss even one day. Every single morning, she'll recite Al-Baqarah, she'll recite Ali Imran. Perhaps you'll wonder, maybe she doesn't have children. She gave birth to 12 children. And she recites the Quran. And despite her old age, many times what happens? People in old age, they say, if I read, my head hurts. If I read, I lose my breath. If I read, my eyes hurt. People say this. Why? Because they're not used to reciting the Quran. They're not used to it. And they're sitting, and they have so much time, but they're unable to do anything. Why? Because their youth they spent wasting it. The honeybee does not waste even a single day. If we spend our youth like this, our old age even will be productive. Even that will be beneficial. وَاللَّهُ فَضَّلَ بَعْضَكُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ فِي الرِّزْقِ. And Allah has favored some of you over others in provision. How? That some have more wealth and others have less wealth. Some are possessors of wealth and others are servants. Some are employers and others are employed. Some are malik and others are mamluk. Some are owners and others are slaves. So Allah has kept this variation. Allah has فَضَّلَ بَعْضَكُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ فِي الرِّزْقِ. If you notice in the previous ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions knowledge. لِكَيْ لَا يَعْلَمَ بَعْدَ عِلْمٍ شَيْئًا. And in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions wealth. And both are blessings. Knowledge as well as wealth. However, knowledge is mentioned first. Why? Because it's a greater blessing. It's a much more valuable and important blessing. فَمَا الَّذِينَ فُضِّلُوا. So those people who have been preferred, meaning who have more, who have been favored with wealth and servants, they are not at all biradi, ones who hand over rizqihim, their provision. Raddi is actually raddina. The plural of the word, rad. And who is rad? Ism fa'il, one who does radda, one who returns. So those people who have been given more in terms of wealth and servants, they do not hand over their provision to who? Ala, upon ma malakat aymanuhum, those whom their right hands possess. In other words, a person who has a lot of wealth, he will not give his wealth, some of it to who? To his servant. So that for whom so they, both the boss and the worker, or the master and the slave, both of them, they become fihi, in it, sawa'un, equal. In other words, no boss is going to give half of his money to the person who is working for him. No master is going to give half of his wealth to who? To his servant. Nobody does that. No wealthy person is going to give half of his wealth to a poorer person so that both of them become equal in respect of wealth. In terms of wealth, both of them become equal. Nobody does that. أَفَبِنِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ. Then, with the blessing of Allah, يَجْحَدُونَ, do they reject? يَجْحَدُونَ is from the root letters jim, ha, dal. Juhud. And juhud is to reject something harshly, to reject something after knowing about it, to refuse to accept it. What is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explaining to us through this example? That if you think of it, if you have wealth, you will not give half of it to someone else so that he becomes equal to you in wealth. You will never do that. If you have something, you will not give it to another so that they can share it with you. Hardly any woman will say to another woman, why didn't you come be a wife to my husband? No woman will willingly do that. So if a person does not like this for himself, then how can he like this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How can he like the fact that Allah should hand over some of His authority, some of His power to someone else, so that both are equal in terms of lordship, in terms of deserving worship? It doesn't happen. It doesn't make sense. In the previous ayat, what did we learn? That the mushrikeen of Makkah, they had double standards. How? That to Allah they would ascribe daughters, and if they were told that a daughter has been born to them, they would become extremely upset, extremely sad. Over here again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that if you don't like somebody to take half your wealth, that he becomes equal to you, how can you desire this for Allah? How can you want this for Allah? Because sometimes people say, what's the big deal if there are multiple gods? Well, first of all, this is not the case. There cannot be multiple gods. Secondly, if there were multiple gods, there would be complete chaos. Thirdly, if there are multiple gods, what are you doing? You're reducing the status of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're reducing His power, His position, His authority. And would you do that for yourself? You would hate it for yourself. So how can you prefer this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? أَفَبِنِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ يَجْحَدُونَ? Are they rejecting the blessing of Allah? What is meant by this? If you think about it, everything that you have, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given it to you. So if you say that this blessing has been given to me by so and so, by such and such, then that is rejecting the blessing of Allah. Allah has bestowed everything to you, and you say that others have given that? That is ingratitude. And another very important lesson that we learn from this ayah is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept variation in the rizq that people have. Some have more, some have less. Allah has kept this difference. People have not been created equally. People have not been created equal in terms of wealth, in terms of status, in terms of ability, in terms of age. Nothing is equal. Just as your 5 fingers are not equal, similarly people are not equal. So this concept of equality in terms of wealth is unnatural. It's completely unnatural. If you try to implement it, it will not work. As we have seen, it will never work. Allah has kept this variation. And in this is a test. That those people who have more, what do? Do they become arrogant? And those people who have less, what do? Do they feel that they're the most unfortunate ones in this world? Everyone is in a test. Umar ibn al-Khattab radhiyallahu anhu, once he wrote a letter to Abu Musa al-Ashari that be content with your provision in this world. For the most merciful has honored some of His servants over others in terms of provision as a test of both. Both are being tested. The one who has been given plenty is being tested to see if he will give thanks to Allah and fulfill the duties which are his by virtue of his wealth. And the other person who has been given less, he is also being tested for his sabr. وَاللَّهُ جَعَلَ لَكُمْ, and Allah has made for you more blessings. Remember the surah is Suratun Ni'am, blessings. So Allah has made for you min anfusikum, from yourselves, azwajan, spouses. What does it mean by azwaj over here? Primarily wives. Because kum is masculine. And if you think about it, Hawa, she was created from who? Adam alayhi salam. So جَعَلَ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا, meaning He made Hawa from Adam alayhi salam. And secondly, min anfusikum also means from your type. Your type, your own kind. A human being just like you. So وَاللَّهُ جَعَلَ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا وَجَعَلَ لَكُمْ, and He has made for you min azwajikum, from your spouses, meaning through your wives, what do you have? Children. Banina, sons. Banin is a plural of ibn. And ibn is used for a son, a male child in particular. And bint is girl, daughter. And remember that the word banin, the plural form, it doesn't just apply to sons, but it also applies to who? Sons and daughters. Like for example, Bani Israel. Does it mean only the men from among the Bani Israel? No. It includes the descendants of Israel. So, banin wa hafadatan, and grandsons, grandchildren. Banin wa hafadatan has been understood in a number of ways. First of all, we take the meaning of banin to be sons, meaning one's immediate children, which include sons and daughters. And the word hafada is the plural of hafid. Hafayadal, hafid. And hafid is grandson. So He has made for you from your wives, you have banin, meaning children, and you also have hafadatan, meaning grandchildren. So you have sons, and you also have grandsons. Now you may wonder, why are sons mentioned? Why is the male word used? Why? Because your lineage, it continues through who? Through sons. Your daughter will go to somebody else's house, and her children are going to be whose? Theirs. So this is one way of understanding. Another way of understanding is that the word hafada is the plural of hafid. Hafid. And hafid is used for a swift worker, a helper, someone who works swiftly, someone who comes quickly. in order to serve someone, in order to attend to them. Like for example, in the dua of witr, what do we say? وَإِلَيْكَ نَسْعَى وَنَحْفِدْ. وَإِلَيْكَ نَسْعَى, we run to, وَنَحْفِدْ. So, hafada is to rush to someone in order to attend to them, in order to see what they're saying, in order to respond to their call. And from this it is used for a helper, a swift worker. So then hafada is understood in various ways. How? First of all, it has been said that hafada is referring to daughters. Where baneen are sons, hafada are who? Hafada are who? Daughters. And why is the word hafada used for daughters? Because they're much more quick in the work that they do. If you tell your son to clean his room and you tell your daughter to clean her room, who's going to do it first? Your daughter. If two children are sitting in front of you, let's say you and your brother are sitting in front of your parents, and your parents say, bring me a glass of water, who's going to get up? The daughter, right? So, hafada applies to who? Daughters. Because they are more swift in their work compared to boys. Secondly, it is said that hafada refers to wives' children from previous husband. So if you look at the ayah, وَجَعَلَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَزْوَاجِكُمْ بَنِينَ وَحَفَدَةً. The wives that you have, they give birth to your children. And sometimes they have children from before as well, from a previous husband. And it's possible that those children are very helpful, those children are very obedient, they're very good children. So He has given this blessing to you. Because many times people take the children of the wife from previous husband as a big burden, as a huge responsibility. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows it as a blessing. And the Prophet ﷺ, he had many hafada. Many of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, they had children from before. Then we also see that hafada has been understood as a son-in-law. That Allah has made for you from your wives baneen, you have sons. And through your wives, Allah has also granted you hafada. How? That through your wives you have girls, you have daughters. And those daughters, when they get married, you get more sons. And why is this word used for son-in-law? Because sometimes they are more obedient, more helpful than one's own sons. Isn't it so? Sometimes a person may complain that my husband works more for my parents than my brother does. He contributes more to the family than my brother does. It's possible. And this is a blessing. Don't take it as a burden. It's a blessing of Allah. It's tawfiq that Allah has given to you. Then we also see that hafada has been understood as any servant, anyone who serves you, anyone who assists you, anyone who helps you, whether they're your relatives or not. And it has been said, وَجَعَلَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَزْوَاجِكُمْ بَنِينَ وَحَفَدَةً. Because many times in your house, for example, if you're moving, who's going to be putting in a lot of effort? The woman, the mother, the wife. She's packing, she's doing everything. And if she wants help, who is she going to call? Her friends. Or she's going to hire some servants. So through your wives, there comes to you a lot of help. وَحَفَدَةً. Similarly, hafada has also been understood as grandchildren. Children of children. Similarly, it has also been said that hafada applies to older children. That baneen, it refers to younger children. And hafada applies to who? Older children. Because younger children, little children, you have to attend to them. But who helps you? Your older children. Many times it happens that if a woman has a daughter who is perhaps even 5 or 6 years of age, she will help the mother in looking after the new baby. Whereas we see that sometimes the son, he will be completely oblivious. But the daughter will bring the diaper, she will go throw the diaper, she will go pick the clothes, she will help you give the bath, she will do many, many things. So this is a big blessing of Allah. وَرَزَقَكُمْ, and He has provided you مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ, from the good things. Notice, مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ. Only some good things have been given to you in this dunya, because all of the طيبات are where? In Jannah. In dunya there are only some. And الطيبات include all the different kinds of fruit, animals, grains, different things that people enjoy, they eat, they benefit from. أَفَبِالْبَاطِلِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Then is it that with the falsehood they believe? They believe in the falsehood. وَبِنِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ هُمْ يَكْفُرُونَ. And the blessing of Allah they deny. What does it mean by this? You see, the mushrikeen, they realize this, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us all of these blessings. Allah is the only one who has created our wives, our children, our grandchildren, who has given us these relationships. So Allah says that despite the fact that Allah is the only one who has given this to you, yet you believe in batil. What does batil mean? Batil refers to the false gods, the idols whom they believed in. وَبِنِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ هُمْ يَكْفُرُونَ. What does the ni'mah refer to? The blessing of Allah, meaning the halal, the various blessings that Allah has given, especially the ones that are mentioned over here, that He has given you azwaj, and then baneen, and then hafada. Allah has given you all of this, yet you say that they have been given to you by your false gods. And there is also another point that must be noticed over here, that all of these things that Allah has given, especially these relationships, what are they? A huge blessing of Allah. They're a huge blessing of Allah. But many times people have these weird concepts, cultural beliefs, traditions, which is why they don't value these blessings. Instead, they're very ungrateful for them. We learned earlier that the Arabs, certain tribes, to have a daughter was a source of great embarrassment. Why? Because they didn't like the fact that their daughter was going to go to somebody else's house. So to have a son-in-law was a source of shame for them. It was a source of embarrassment for them. And unfortunately, some people even think like that today as well. That they think, oh my God, my daughter's going to go to somebody else's house. And she's going to be married to somebody else's house. My daughter who's so chaste. I mean, this is natural. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept this process of azwaj, of marriage. There should be no embarrassment in this when it's being done through halal. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions over here that having hafada is what? It's a blessing. This is a blessing of Allah. So don't be ungrateful for it. On the Day of Judgment, we learn that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to His servant, reminding him of His favors, that Alam uzawwijuka, Alam ukrimka, Alam usakhir laka al-khayla wal-ibila. Did I not give you a wife? Did I not honor you? Did I not subject horses and camels to your use for your benefit? So all of these are blessings of Allah. Among them are what? Your spouse. So we must be very, very grateful for the spouses that we have. Women should be grateful for their husband, and the husbands should be grateful for their wives. This is extremely important. Because many times we take our spouse as a burden. We take our children as a burden. That now I have to cook for them. Now I have to clean for them. Now I have to do their laundry as well. Now I have to iron their clothes as well. Okay, now I have to help them in their work as well. This is not fair. I thought when a girl gets married, she becomes free. She becomes a queen. And here I see I'm like a servant. No, this is a blessing that Allah has given you. Think about all those people who don't have a spouse. Think about all those people who have lost their spouse. It's a big blessing. So be grateful for this blessing of Allah. Don't take it as a burden. وَيَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. And they worship besides Allah. مَا لَا يَمْلِكُ لَهُمْ. What does not possess for them. رِزْقًا. Any provision. مِنَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. From the heavens or the earth. شَيْئًا. Anything at all. They worship beings besides Allah that do not have any power to bestow any provision to them, neither from the sky nor from the earth. From the sky in the form of rain, in the form of sunlight, and from the earth in the form of vegetation. So they worship such beings which cannot provide them any rizq from anywhere. وَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُونَ. Nor are they capable. Meaning even if these so-called gods, they try to give them rizq from the sky or from the earth, they will be unable to do so.